In this Python example program, we're going to look at for loops. We're going to use the method range to produce a set of numbers. Then we are going to loop over those numbers. We are going to nest the loops, so we're going to have loops within loops, and we are going to repeatedly print out a phrase. This is a scenario from the movie The Shining, where the phrase "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy" is just typed over and over again by somebody as he goes mad. This Jack loop Python program is available at the URL seen at the top. On the left, we see the program, the top of the program, as it is loaded into the Visual Studio Code IDE. On the right, we see some of the output, the phrase "all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy" repeated over and over again. We can see here a little bit of the nesting of the loops. The inner loop will make a single paragraph, and then the outer loop will make multiple paragraphs. This program is demonstrating loops, and loops are used for repetition, to repeat something. So we're just going to simply repeat a phrase over and over again. So that's our scenario. And we're going to repeat the phrase a number of times to make a paragraph, and then we're going to have a number of paragraphs. And the number of sentences within a paragraph is going to be random, and the number of paragraphs is going to be random. So the first thing we're going to do in line 7 down there is import random. And the next thing we're going to do in 9 is to declare and initialize our repeated phrase. In Python, the loop structure is usually set up to loop over a list or an array, a set of things. But we are just doing something a number of times. And so this method range is going to help us produce a set of things to be able to be used in our for loop. Now, this code from 11 to 16 is commented out, the 3 quotes in line 11 and the 3 quotes in line 16 work together to make everything between it a comment. But if that were uncommented, if we were to clear out a line 11 and 16, then we would see in line 13 we are creating a test range. We're using the method range, and then test range would be the numbers 0 through 4, so 5 things, but starting at 0 and up to, but not including 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in 14, we are setting up a for loop where we are going over the items in test range. Item is sort of a dummy name to work through the loop to correspond to each item one by one within the loop as we iterate over the loop. And then the thing we're doing in the loop, which is indented, sort of after the for loop statement 14 and after the colon and indented, we are just printing the item. So this would print on a line by itself 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, if it were not commented out. In line 19, we are getting a random number between 6 and 8, and we are assigning that value to the variable called para_num. So this is the number of paragraphs that we are going to write. And then in 20, we are beginning our outer for loop. So we are saying for x. Again, x, like item that we talked about previously, is just sort of a dummy made-up thing. And then it is going to go over the range. So let's say the paragraph number ended up to be 6. Then range of 6 would be the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as we set up the loop in 20, x would be 0, and then 1, 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then we would stop. That's the beginning. That's the setup for our outer loop of our nested loop. We can see that line 21 is indented and is after our for loop that we established in 20. So that means it's part of what is repeated. So we're going to execute line 21 for each of the x's in the outer for loop. In line 21, we're getting a random number between 10 and 15. This is going to be the number of sentences within a paragraph. And then we are ready to do our inner loop starting in line 22, where we are going to loop over the sentences in a paragraph. And so again, we have our range. So if we got a 10, then range 10 is going to be the numbers 0 through 9, and then we're setting up a loop for y, and y is going to take on each value between 0 and 9. It's going to be 0 and then 1 and then 2, etc., up until it gets to be up to and including the 9. The print statement in line 23 is indented twice. It is in the inner loop. So we have a for loop starting at 20. We have another for loop that is indented within 22. And so we have a loop within a loop, a nested loop. And 23 is indented twice. It is a statement within the inner loop. So it will be repeated for all of the y's, and then we will get a new x and sort of start all over again. So this will be the most repeated thing. We are printing. The first argument is text, which is our phrase, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. And then a normal print. If we only had one argument, a normal print would automatically have a line v carriage return as part of it, would move to the next line if print had a single argument. So this second argument of end equals quote quote is telling us not to give us this, not to put us on a new line. And so that gives us that sort of paragraph structure of the inner loop, that the phrase immediately follows the previous phrase without a line, without a new line. When we get to 24, we are only indented once, so we are in the outer loop, but not in the inner loop. And this says print \n. This is going to give us 2 returns when we are finished the y loop, the inner loop. Then that does not return. Then at 24, we are going to return twice. There's only one argument in this print, and a print normally has a return. And then we have, in addition, between the quotes, we have a \n, which is an escape sequence that tells us to get a new line. So there's the new line we're printing, and then print with only one argument also has a new line. So this is 2 new lines. So you will have sort of a blank line between our paragraphs. And then finally, line 25 is not indented at all. It does not belong to any loop. It is not a repeated thing at all. And it just says print the end. When we're completely done, all of this repeating, the repeating within the repeating, when all the repeating is done, we're just going to print the end.